Hello, everybody. Oh, it's Gena here, and today is October 11, 2022. I don't know if that date has any significance for you, but I suppose October 11 will be a date that is stamped in my memory forever because it just so happens to be that today is the launch of my book, Leading Inclusion. Yay!
So beautiful.
So excited. So before I go any further, I wanted to explain this wonderful lady is that you see smiling here on the screen with me. Uh, Her name is Becky Robinson. And Becky Robinson is the CEO and founder of an organization called Weaving Influence. And they have been wonderful partners to me in the lead up to this book launch. So if if we get to talk later on, or if you catch me on another day and want to know more about the various elements and the ways that I was able to put things together so that I could have a successful book launch. And by the way, it takes a village. I will be mentioning Becky and her team somewhere in that conversation. So you'll get to know more. But she'll be here and she'll be sharing some ideas. So more importantly, you might learn a few things from her today. Welcome, Becky.
Welcome to you. An author's book launch day is such a significant part of your journey, and I'm so thrilled and honored to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you asked me earlier, how do I feel? And frankly, it's a mix of absolute excitement. There's relief. Oh, well, finally, after all this hard work, and a little bit of exhaustion. So I think I put those three things in one little pot, stir it together and say, it's a day definitely that doesn't feel like other days. And I feel very blessed and lucky to be here to do this.
Well, one of the things I said to you before we went live is the importance of celebrating. And that's something I always try to remind authors of. And you and I chatted a little bit that you do have a lot of commitments today and a lot to get done. But I hope that the joy of the day can come through because so much work goes into this, not only the work to write the book, which is a heavy load, but also the preparation that you've done to be able to bring this book to the world to add value to others.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely going to celebrate. During the day, I have my relatives who are taking care of me so I don't have to do the things that I might otherwise be doing. I can just focus on the book launch, but also just lending that emotional support and letting me know that they're there for me. And then later tonight, I'll do a sort of a formal celebration. But, because of the nature of my book and the work that I do, I feel like all of this clearly is a celebration because my work is all about ideas and trying to help people connect with one another and understand things that they might not have understood before. So every little thing that I do, I think of it as a celebration of this work.
What a great attitude.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's my attitude about everything, and Becky, even this event, I mean, what I wanted to do or would like to do in the next few minutes that we're together here is this is not a party event. This is really an opportunity, I think, to do two things. It's an opportunity for you to share ideas about the ways that people who are book lovers, who are interested in leading inclusion, in books in general, and in my work, can certainly figure out what they can do to further support the book launch. Because as you and all of the professionals in this industry always say, this is just day one. It's a long game, as Dory Clark would say. And then this is also going to be an opportunity for me, very specifically, to acknowledge the many people who have supported this work in getting to this point. So, where do you think we should start, Becky?
Well, I'd be happy to start with some ways that people could support you if they're not sure. And there are so many, and I get really jazzed up about them. So I'm going to warn you ahead of time. I have a
Go
lot of
ahead.
energy around this. And so let's just start with launch day and ways people can support today. So when an author brings their book into the world, Gena, as you know, that early momentum is critically important. And I apologize, it sounds like someone's mowing the lawn over here outside our office. So the first day, the first week, the first month is an important momentum building time. And one of the reasons is because your book is what Amazon calls a hot new release. And so in the first 30 days, when your book comes out, when it's a hot new release, that's your chance to get the bestseller banner. Now, those of you who have been following Gena's journey closely know that throughout this pre-order campaign, we've had lots of days where we've seen that bestseller banner in category, and that is tremendously exciting. So today is the day that we have the best shot of getting the highest rank overall on Amazon, which can help other people who need this book discover it. So if you are watching this video, if you have not bought Gena's book yet, maybe you got a free copy as a part of her launch team, I would encourage you to go buy the book today. Buying the book is the single best thing that you can do to help an author expand awareness of the book, because the more people who land on the sales pages on the various online retailers, the more that will cause the book to appear in search when people are looking for a book like this. So I will tell you, Gena, I pre-ordered my copy before you even hired me in my organization,
Thank
because
you.
we had met and I admired you. And so my book will be at home. I do have a copy in the office, but my personal copy will be in my home when I get there later today. So for those who are listening, if you are able, if Gena were a friend and she came into town and you would fight her for the check, this is my favorite analogy. Gena, if you were in my town and I could go to lunch with you, of course I would pick up the check. So if you're watching and you would pick up the check, and I'm sure you would because Gena's added value to your journey, go ahead and order the book today. Now, there are also probably some people here today who can do more than buy just one book. This is like a telethon. Please forgive me. The day your book comes out is the time that you can be the most shameless with these requests. You really and so you might be someone who's watching who is part of an organization, and this book could be important to the leaders of your organization. So instead of just buying one copy, you might be able to buy 10 or 20 or 50 or 100. So if you're watching this today and you are someone who could use this book in your organization to add value to your leaders, who desperately need to know that inclusion is more important than diversity, that we have to lead by including others, then I would encourage you to check out bulk buy opportunities for this book today. So the first most important thing is buy the book, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book. Gena's not going to want to say it. I'm going to say it. Buy the book. Okay? That's
Thank you so much, Becky. You're right. It's much easier for me to listen to you saying it than for me to say it myself.
It is. So the second thing I want to say is, to those of you who have had a chance to get an early copy of the book, review the book is the second most important request today. Those early Amazon reviews provide such important social proof for people who are looking to consider whether this book might be a good purchase for them. And so as you're writing your review, you don't need to overthink it. It doesn't have to be multiple paragraphs long. Bonus points, though, if you take a picture of yourself with the book or you film a video talking about why you found value in the book. But even just a short sentence with an impactful headline, think about the words that you're using, and whatever value you received as you reviewed the content, use those words in your review. It only takes a few minutes to leave a review, but the more reviews Gena has, the more easily it will be for people to decide that her book is credible and worth buying. My goal for you, Gena, is that by the end of the week, you would have, not 10, not 20, maybe 30, 40, 50 reviews. And by the end of the first month, that you'd be nearing 100 reviews. And those are very important for the success of the book over the long haul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, until I became an author myself, I never understood the value of reviews. And so I know from observing and learning from other friends who are authors now how important those reviews are. You're right.
Sure. So just for a little bit of knowledge for anyone who doesn't know the importance of Amazon reviews, go and look at on any given day at the top 20 selling books on Amazon. Now, most authors are unlikely to hit that pinnacle. The books there are ones, well, frankly, most of them are fiction, but many of them are perennial sellers. They all have one thing in common. If they've been out for any length of time, they don't have like 100 or 200 Amazon reviews. They have thousands of Amazon reviews. So just that little exercise can show you how important those reviews are.
Mm-hmm.
So the third thing that you can do to help Gena, and I know that many of you are already doing it, so thank you, is to leverage your own networks to tell them about this book. If you're not a super comfortable social media user, Gena has created some content that you can share easily. And after this live stream is over, she'll put a link to this Google Doc into the chat, and you can go to that Google Doc, you can copy, paste, share. Don't be embarrassed if you need to use the pre-written copy. My own brother, when my book came out, Gena, he sent me a message on Facebook and said, I'll share your book, but you need to write something so I know how to do it. So, you might be Gena's best friend. You might be in her family. You might be someone who's never met her. Either way, we want to invite you to use the content that we've provided. We want to make it easy. And I would like to challenge you, if you have, friends on Facebook and a LinkedIn account and an Instagram, share it all the places. You have different people watching you different places. And this book is a valuable resource, and you want to make sure people know that you support this resource.
That's right.
When you write your copy, make sure you say these 3 important words: buy the book, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book. Don't just say, hey, my friend has a new book. Say, buy the book. Okay. The other thing is, you might have a way of reaching your network that's more powerful than your social platforms. I have an email list. Last Friday, I did include a note about Gena's book to my list. If you have an email list or you're writing a newsletter, would you consider talking about the value in this book so that those people who might be opening your emails would hear about it? And then I'm going to take it even one step further. There may be people that you know who are currently wrestling with this idea of inclusion in their organizations. Maybe it's a friend who's an HR director, or maybe it's, an entrepreneur who you know. I just thought of someone right now who I can recommend the book to. Maybe take a minute, jot down 5 names. Who are 5 people who you know who need this book right now? And then go the extra mile and send a note to them personally to say, hey, I've been sharing this on my social media. You might have missed it. I want to make sure you hear about this book that I'm so excited about. Gena Cox, Leading Inclusion.
Oh.
All right, I'm going to go a little bit further, though. There might be some other ways that you could help Gena. So it's possible that you organize an event and you could invite Gena as a speaker to get this message to more people. It could be that you host a podcast and you could invite Gena as a guest. It could be that you write articles for Forbes or some other major media platform, and you could include this book and this work. So whatever it is, just take a minute to think about, in what way can I leverage my own networks and connections to amplify Gena's work through this book, to honor her work.
Wow. So many, 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 many ways. And, I'm lucky to personally know about those methods, because I have supported other authors in those ways, by buying their books, by reviewing their books, by introducing them to be speakers at other people's events, or having them as a speaker in my own event. Many I have had a chance to support people that I know who have podcasts, by being on their podcasts. And all of these different things that you mentioned really do make a difference. And the other thing that they do, all of the things you mentioned, is that, I noticed that they all have sort of a social component, in that, yes, they're about the person and they're about the book, but really these are opportunities for a person to just communicate with another person, and you're sharing an asset, sharing something that they know that somebody else might find useful. And so even though you're asking someone to buy a book, you're giving them some value too, because they're learning about something that could be a resource for them. I had to learn how to do those things myself. So I understand that these are not things that are top of mind. But so, Becky, I really appreciate that you could be that specific. Of course, this is no surprise, because I have multiple copies of your book called Reach. And for anyone who's listening to this, you saw how quickly and how easily it was for Becky to call out this whole list of things that you could do. Well, she's got many, many more ideas like those in her book, a book that I would recommend to anyone who wants to get a message out, not just to authors. But for anyone who has some important message that you're trying to share, what Becky's book is about is how to sort of, create a plan and maximize all of your opportunities for getting that word out via every possible channel that you can imagine. And one of the nice things I like about this is that many of the ideas that Becky suggested to me as an author when I read her book didn't cost me anything. Obviously there are things that one can do to pay to get a message out, but I think this book is also is really effective at helping you to understand what you can control to get your message out. And you can be sure, Becky, that I'm using every one of these ideas.
What an awesome surprise. And thank you for
work.
turning it back on me. Look at Gena, even on her launch day, finding ways to support another author.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. If there's one thing that I really believe in, and I learned this a long time ago, I don't know how, is that I know that one gets a lot more out of opportunities when, they're collaborative. I love collaboration. I love the idea that, people help me in ways that I don't even know that they're helping, that I haven't asked them to help. And so I always feel like I have to pay that back, because that's just the way the world works. It's not all about me. So as you share those ideas, Becky, and I say thank you in advance to anyone who is listening, and does any one of those things, especially buying the book and doing the review for today. But then all of the other things, this is a long game. You don't have to do all of these things today. But do, if you can do the first two things, as I said, buying the book and writing the review today or this week, that would be enormously helpful. But for everything else on the list, do it whenever you can do it. And so the other thing I wanted to say, today is, it really takes a village. And from the time I started working on this book, it became really clear to me that book writing is not a solitary pursuit. Yes, it is solitary as you write the words and do the research and so on. And then you get blamed for every typo or everything that's wrong in the book, which is perfectly fine too. But the reality is that in order to write this book, there were people that came before me, first of all, that I observed and felt like, maybe there was something about writing a book that might be useful for my journey. So thank you. I want to thank the folks that I interviewed for this book. There were some everybody I interviewed for the book was very open and honest. I could not mention all of your names in the acknowledgments. But even those whose names I could not mention, for every last one of you that I interviewed, and there were 30 something of you, your contribution was invaluable because I wanted to write a book about inclusion where the people I interviewed were a diverse and inclusive book. So I wanted my book to be inclusive. And similarly, for those of you who took the time to write a blurb in support of the book, whether you wrote it for the hard copy book, for the ebook, or for both, or however you wrote it, I want to let you know how much I appreciate everything that you did. And similarly with the blurbers, it was really, I asked you because I wanted you, because I wanted to have a very diverse group as well of blurbers. I mean, the whole point was, how do we talk about inclusion and not have it just have one perspective that is reflected? So thank you for writing endorsements, however you did that for my book. And then, there's some groups of people that I just want to quickly acknowledge in this conversation. First of all, I talk about Dorie Clark fairly often, and it's because I heard about Dorie Clark 13 years ago, or at least I should say in 2013, when I had a bit of a professional crisis, and I needed to really figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I did two things. I started to take an improv class at my local theater company, American Stage, that literally helped me get my voice back and be able to express myself again like I used to always be able to do. And then I started looking for books that one might call, self-development books. And I found Dorie Clark's Reinventing You. And I read this book, and I was never the same because I started from that moment to sort of think about how will I reinvent myself to accomplish what I needed to accomplish. So I wanted to acknowledge Dorie Clark and her recognized expert community of which I am a part because of all of the inspiration, the encouragement, the wisdom that has helped push me forward on my book journey. I also do want to take a quick minute to acknowledge AJ Harper, who has been my writing and publicity coach. And I don't know what those words mean, and I bet you don't either, because writing and publicity coach doesn't capture really, it just touches on a little bit about what she is able to do. She has a new book called Writer Must Read, no surprise. But what she actually has been for me is sort of like my writing and my publication and my publicity whisperer. She kind of knows what I would need as support when I needed it, and she would provide that. And really helped me to build a book and then to figure out how best to publish and market that book. So AJ Harper, a special thanks to you and your Dean of Students, Laura Stone. And then as I said, again, in the written acknowledgments in this book, there are many, many people, including my college professors, Wally Borman and Paul Spector, who I cannot ever, overemphasize their impact on me. But I also just want to generally say that, I wrote this book for my daughter, because she is my daughter, but she's been with me. I said earlier to Becky that my daughter came with me to graduate school. She was 1 year old when I started. And so for all these years, she has sort of watched me go and walk this journey. I love her dearly, Marin, and this book is for you, but it's really also because I want workplaces to be the kind of workplaces in which you can thrive. And I hope that my book makes it a little bit easier for you and your generation, for all of you in your generation, to have a better experience at work in all the various ways that you can have that. I definitely want to thank my partner Steve, who keeps me going by making sure that I take care of myself at the same time that I'm doing all the various things that I do that I think I must do in order to be successful in my career. And then, of course, my parents. My mom is deceased. My dad is still with us. Thank you, mom and dad, for all of your support, and my grandparents. I'm going to stop with my grandparents only because I could go on forever. But if there was ever a girl whose grandparents were like the angels, and sort of resting on her shoulders to this very day, I always can imagine my world as being one where I am always loved and supported, and it's because of these people in my life. So um, thank you all. And then every other person who has bought this book, written a review, given me a pat on the shoulder, sent me an email on launch day as I've received to say, uh, congratulations for what you're doing. In any way that you have helped support me in this book, I know who you are, and I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to say thank you.
This is so heartwarming. Gena, I wonder if I could ask you a question.
Absolutely.
On a book launch day, I always love to hear from authors about what your biggest hopes and dreams for this book are. And one of the reasons I like to ask that question is because when you can share those with those who are helping you, it helps to engage them more in the why behind helping to promote the book.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this book is called Leading Inclusion. It's a book, though, that the book is a vehicle, because what I'm really trying to accomplish goes beyond the book. What I would like to do is just change the world of work. I've been a corporate consultant for decades. I have worked myself in corporate life, and there are many advantages. It's why we're there. We all join organizations with a great deal of enthusiasm that we're going to accomplish things, and also that we're going to have a great life as part of this organization. I think most people would prefer to just stay with an organization and have that experience. But what I also learned from my observations as a consultant and my relationships and contacts in corporate life is that sometimes the experience that employees have is not exactly what they had in mind. And so when you think about the great resignation or quiet quitting or any of these faddish words that really just boil down to one thing, meaning employees are not as engaged as they should be, the question always comes to mind is, or the thing that always comes to mind is, I know that organizations can be better. And I also know that sometimes senior leaders in organizations would do things that would make them better if they only knew the experience that employees were having. And I also know sometimes they do not, because people hold information back from senior leaders all the time. So, what I want to do is to make it easier for those who read my book and who think about my message of inclusion to see what they can do to better understand the experience of all employees, but in particular, employees from traditionally disadvantaged groups. And I think that's going to give them a little bit of a few ahas that will make them say, oh my, I need to do A, B, or C that I'm not doing today. And I know they will. And therefore, my big goal is really to make the workplace better, and then ultimately, make the world better, because we spend so much time at work. We'll take all those good vibes home with us.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
And thank you for asking that question. So, Becky, thank you for joining me on October 11th, 2022 for the launch of Leading Inclusion. This is a very important day, a day I won't forget. And it's so wonderful to have you here in my corner in all of the ways that people can see, as well as ways that they cannot see, because you've been so helpful, you and your organization. So I just want to say thank you again. For joining me. I very much appreciate it. And I look forward to speaking with you, Becky, and to any of my other supporters and collaborators at another time soon. Bye,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.